Excellent. Hi, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Sheila Sieusankar, and this is the first episode of the Worldwide Abraham Hicks Results Show. So thank you to the Abraham Fund Group and to Karen Money Williams and to Mark Toms for having this group and all the folks that are here. I can't see everybody's names over here, but we have everybody, all the cool kids are here, I'm just saying. And we're getting ready to dive into a story. But first, I'm going to share my screen and show pictures. It's going to be an interactive event. So if you're here live, feel free to call out a question. If you want to type it out, we have a point person, a question liaison is Wendy, and the wind beneath my wings, as it were, for this episode. And we're going to start with the end in mind and move through, but ask questions at any time. We'll do story one. There'll probably be an intermission for like a little personal bio break, whatever, and then we'll do story two. And if you're watching this recording and you have a question, and you can either reach out to me on my page, Flow with My Go, send me a message, messenger, you know the drill. I'm on all the interwebs. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you all should be able to see. Where is my begin with the end in mind? There it is. Okay. And I need to move my little picture out of the way. Okay. So beginning with the end in mind, this story about my dream life is going to end up in France for 2 years. And it was delightful. But it wasn't that my dream was always to go to France. It was the way it's unfolded, you'll see. But I wanted to just show you all these things that I got to experience and to just have that in your mind as we go through and tell the story. So here I just figured I'd start with a map. So here's Europe and there's France, and then down here is Toulouse, which is the area. Can you all see my mouse cursor circling on Toulouse? Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure if that was going to show up. So that's where I was in the south of France. It is delightful. Then there's all the French coastline and there's Spain, and I didn't really understand the geography until I got there and actually experience it. I'm sort of a kinesthetic learner, I guess. I had to be there. So I got to see the Eiffel Tower, of course, this beautiful vortex, and that was at night, and then the sparklies. And when my two favorite parts about the Eiffel Tower, one is standing underneath it. Some teachers call it an energy vortex. Standing underneath it, and many of you have probably gotten to experience this. It just felt, I didn't know why other people didn't want to stand directly under the center of it. Everybody wants to go to the top. I just wanted to stand under it. It's expansive and amazing. Then the second favorite thing I liked about the Eiffel Tower, and I got to go to Paris so many times, I sort of treated it like a 7-Eleven. I was like, oh, what do I feel like this time? One of those, whatever. Like I started to know the arrondissement or whatever their city sections are. It was really, really cool between my visits and then living there. So the other thing I liked about the Eiffel Tower is there's a grassy area, much like if you've been to DC and they have that Washington Monument, the Washington Monument with the mall area that's in front of it, and people hang out there. It's kind of like that with the Eiffel Tower, and whoa, oh la la, that is where people come around with flowers and wine, and you just linger, and that was my second favorite thing about the Eiffel Tower. And I had to include it here because that's so iconic. Whenever you have a movie and something's set in Paris or France, almost every scene has to have the Eiffel Tower in it. There I am at a castle in Carcassonne. I don't know why I'm trying to pretend to have a French accent. No matter how French I try to sound, I still sound American. And I know folks are going to be joining us, and that's awesome. So we'll hear bells and chimes. And if people want, as they join, if they want to say hey, welcome to say hey. If they just want to jump in and howdy. Back. Hey, they're welcome to do that too. So we're going over, beginning with the end in mind, all things France. So I put together some of my favorite pictures. There I am at Roman ruins, and I studied Latin in school, so I was kind of like interested in that whole thing. And I had this funny idea that Roman ruins were in Rome, right? Which I think of as Italy and the Colosseum and the whatever. Well, apparently Rome, which you all probably know, was like huge, right? So I am at Roman ruins in France. Didn't know that till I visited there. So if somebody doesn't have their passport, doesn't have it ready, I recommend it. What was that, Melanie? Was that something?
No, just,
Oh la la, I don't want to miss anything. So that was, I was like, look at this. How did I not know France was so big? As I was visiting France, I ended up teaching a class, on law of attraction, and I'll get into my background in a few minutes, but on law of attraction to non-native English speaking to French people and from other countries at Motorola before I even moved there. So there I am talking about law of attraction. It was awesome. They were really totally into it. And then what is next? Oh, this is the Rodin, the museum. Everybody goes to the Louvre, and I'm sure the Louvre is like amazing and beautiful. I wanted to go to, sculpture is my favorite form of art. I wanted to go to the Rodin Museum, you know, thinker, and the kiss and these hands, and it was delightful. I mean, they had a Van Gogh in amongst all this sculpture, and it's a small cottage of a place with a beautiful, I recommend to anybody, some of you may have gotten to visit it. It has grassy, you know, not like Versailles, huge, daunting sort of place, which is formal and has its own magical flavor. This was like this cute little cottagey, like you could think of this as your summer home or something, and you just feel so elegant when you're there. But the Van Gogh was sitting on the wall, and they had like almost zero security. So I'm like, I think I could touch that Van Gogh. I think I might be able to touch it, and nobody would do anything. And I'm in the vortex, and I'm so all hopped up on this beautiful sculpture and I touched the Van Gogh. You know, so it was a lot of fun. So I love sculpture, and the way the sunlight came in, and you could get ice cream. This is a company that teaches English over the phone. Turned out, as I visited Europe, I found out a lot of people are learning English over the phone. They are learning at school, and then they need to follow up to keep their skills because they're living in whatever country they're living in. And aviation has a default language of English. And so I discovered that. So you'll hear about my experience at that company. Oh, and look at here. Isn't this a nice place to live? This is the best picture I could find. This is the like mansion, I don't know what else to call it, big house estate. And here's the pool on the estate. And then here is the pool house that they converted into apartments, just 2 apartments. So my apartment is on this side with grassy area, barbecue, and I was the only one that ever used the pool. Not a bad gig, right? That was what I called home for a long time, long lingering time in France. This is the view at the pool. And the weather is a lot like North Carolina. To me, it had marked seasons, and I spent time in different climates, but it kind of felt like that to me, which was interesting. I got my second tan of my life in France. The sun is very gentle. It's a gentilhomme. It's a gentleman. It's I could be out in the sun all day, and the sun, when it's June 21st, and it's the most sunlight that the area is going to get, it was light. There was still a little light in the sky. If you were 8 years old, you would still say to your mother, there's still a little light in the sky at like 11 o'clock at night. So the sun just lasts a long, long time. I spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, out on this beautiful area at this estate in this place with this family that loved Americans and enjoyed me, and that was awesome. So what else was I going to say about sunlight? Oh, so I just got a little bit of tan from just being out, and it was like a very gentle tan. And otherwise, I'm sort of, I don't know, 50 shades of pink, I think is what my coloration is. But in college, I went to a tanning bed for like a few sessions, and that was my first ever tan. France was my second ever tan.
Is that, am I allowed to just ask questions out loud?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that where, is that where your crush with the sun started, or did it start?
Oh, my soul sister, Soleil. Ooh. So the crush with the sun, and I have pictures of it at the end of this document.
But I could just feel the warmth of the sun in this picture, and I could just feel how it was not too much, and that you could just sit on that pool's edge and just bask.
I did bask. It may have started there, but the peak, you know, the real shebang thing where I had this mystical and full of love kind of experience, that happened in Phoenix on the way on Sedona. And I have some pictures to share for that towards the end. So,
but do you have a story about laying on that pool and basking?
I was a rock star. They had pool toys and stuff. They spoke, the French family spoke English, and they loved Americans. And I got the house like the apartment like that. I mean, it was easy over the phone, wire money in, no problems. But I found out when I lived there and went to school learning French, everyone else in my class was like, you couldn't get an address unless you had a bank account. Like someone wouldn't want to rent to you unless you had a bank account, but you couldn't get a bank account unless you had an address. And it was some kind of interesting swirling thing people had attracted, whereas I'd attracted just, here you go, and it's all done, and I already had a place to go, and Skyped around and looked at it. So the family was really solicitous and really nice. They had all these pool toys, like lounge chairs, like I'm a Kardashian. And so I was the only one in the pool. They opened the pool. The French family wanted it on the day it opened, and they went right before it closed. They were not really, for whatever reason, interested. And I just lounged, where you bump into the side of the pool in your lounge chair, and then you just drift. And beautiful expansive sky and well manicured gardens and this gentle sun. And I'm getting ready to have my baguette and my chocolate mousse or whatever. Oh, yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, awesome. And what do we have next? Oh, so next, this is what I call my booty call kitty. So the kitty kind of came with the place, which is awesome because I've always had animals. I really enjoy cats, and this cat would just come by and visit every day and spend the night. And then as soon as it was like daytime, and I didn't have a litter box. The cat was in France. They're really much more big on inside outside kitties, and they keep the dogs in, but they chip all their animals. And so but they think their culture is sort of like, my understanding of it is the cat's a wild animal and natural and should be out in nature kind of thing. So, and they don't have screens, at least where I was staying, didn't have screens on the windows, right? Many of you have stayed in places where you just kind of open these, I don't know what to call them, shutters, and there's the outside, and you close them, and now you're kind of closed off because they don't have the same insects and bug farm like we have in Florida, because they're tropical and everything thrives and survives. So this kitty would just come invite herself in and then pop out in the morning. And I called her Booty Call Kitty, not knowing she was a boy or girl, not that it really matters. And when I tell my friends back in the States about her and took some pictures, and she would just linger with me and cuddle up. And I think this picture is of her cuddling up with me, snuggling up in bed. The way I dealt with winter was I got a heated blanket because I couldn't figure out the heating system and how to make it hot enough for my previously Florida self, right, to be comfortable in this more like North Carolina weather. Excuse me. So I had this big heated electric blanket, and the kitty cozied up with me, and that was awesome. Now, I did eventually find out that the owner was across the street who had moved in with her boyfriend, and they had multiple cats, and this cat was like, I'm out of here. I got my own place. I'm going to hang out here. And the way I found out about it is I brought the cat to the vet because it had a little boo-boo in its eye. And I brought the cat to the vet, even though I'm not supposed to have a cat in this beautiful pool house. But I thought it'll be fine because I'm in the vortex most of the time, right? So I'm in alignment, the cat's in alignment, it's all good. And it was all good. And it was the entire time I was there, I had this kitty. But I did get to meet the human parents. And she thought it was so funny. She knew he was the cat. He was going somewhere because he'd like, he wouldn't be hungry when he came home because I would feed him. And then what else? Sometimes I guess she said he smelled a little different. And so she knew that someone was, snuggling up with him and taking care of him. So that was awesome. Can you imagine a pool house living on this estate with a booty call kitty and
That's the
treating
perfect
Paris
name.
like yeah. This is the square. So Toulouse and many places in Europe have these, I learned, they have these big squares. And that's where my French lessons were, in one of those classroom areas. And this is a bag I'd gotten in St. Croix when I was doing seminars and stuff in St. Croix. And this little bag made it to France after New York, California, and different places I live. And there it's carrying my baguette. And I just had to take a picture of it to have just that little scene for myself. And it's delightful. And people hanging out in the square. And then here's me. This is just me enjoying, when we talk about dream life, this is me and the way things just unfolded. And then I'll tell it sort of chronologically how it happened. This is me enjoying gelato in France from an Italian gelato place. But do you see how it's shaped in a flower?
Yeah.
It's just this delightful, the idea of making food is delicious and it's beautiful and it's, so magical. And then here's me saying everything is delicious. This in park with a Belgian waffle with whipped cream and excuse me. Then I did another coaching for Law of Attraction, and at one of the local cafes, and had invited some other teachers and speakers. And this one was translated. So I spoke blah blah blah, and then they translated into French, and then I spoke blah blah blah, and it was translated into French. It was really, really awesome. And it says by Savvy. I used to go by that nickname. That's me. Oh, I was wearing the same top my friend gave me, the same sort of hippy dippy kind of top. Here I am. The people are hanging out, enjoying it. And then there I am. So then I ended up contracting with Toulouse, and it was awesome. Toulouse is the airplane manufacturer, and they need people that speak English because it's a default language of aviation. And they wanted to have this team booster, so I was this facilitator. They didn't have many Americans because most people there are British, and it was a science fiction themed event. So I committed to the whole green. And if you all remember the green woman from the original Star Trek, it looks like a lot of fun, hopefully. I mean, I was having a lot of fun and getting paid $1,000 a day.
Wow.
Which I negotiated when they said yes to so quickly. I thought, maybe, but that was the biggest number I could get in my head. It was about 800 euros at the time, which was about 1,000 US at the time. And work flexible, work a day, work 10 days, whatever. So I can have more to say about that. This is this next couple, I think, are friends in France. The woman on the right is a French woman who I met in the US, and then there's me, and we are in Nice, which is the Riviera, which you all probably know, but I didn't know. So when my friend on Facebook said, I'm going to be coming to France, and I live there, and I'm like, well, I should meet her. She said she lived in Nice. For many of you, that would have been like, ding, 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 ding. Nice is nice, right? Riviera, Saint-Tropez, and the Cannes Film Festival. I had no image in my mind. I was just like, well, I want to be a good friend and a good citizen, so I think I'll go visit her. And maybe it's going to be some kind of place I won't like, but I'm going to go visit her, and I'm sure it'll work out. They had like a Uber thing they called BlaBlaCar, and I'm riding in this car with mostly French-speaking people and trying my little French, I'm like, I'm like, I don't even have to say, this is beautiful. And they're like, it's just the Riviera. And I'm like, I had no idea. Like, I thought I was going to whatever, picture a regular place or industrial place. I had no idea. It's delightful. In the Riviera, everything is open. Instead of building like places in America, they build right on the ocean. It's open so everybody has the view. This is me. I rarely drink, so this is not me drinking, but this is me hanging out at a techno club in the red light, and it was very Daft Punk. And I'm like, look at me, grew up in a little town in Florida, hanging out in a techno club in the Riviera, where John's house is up on the hill. That was awesome. And everybody looks really awesome in red light. So that is, there's a story about me supposedly like missing a train, back to Toulouse. I just didn't feel inspired and let my friends travel back with the taxi. And then by the time I got to the train station, the trains were gone and there was no Uber type thing to take me. So gosh darn it, I had to stay in Nice, and I decided to stay in Negresco, this famous landmark hotel. And what I'm touching on the wall is they had cloth as the wallpaper, and they had original art on every floor, and it was awesome. So for almost the same price as a Best Western in Nice, I stayed at this Negresco, and I was so proud of myself for marching back and decided I was worth it to spend, just a little more money to be able to stay. And that the image back here is the Negresco. And what you're looking at is the people who don't have a private beach. Gosh, they're not staying at the Negresco, or they're choosing not to stay at the private beach. But part of staying there, that's me smiling, hee hee, I'm at a private beach. Look at that. And it's a cabana, and they bring you things, and it was delightful. All that combined. And then this is Villefranche. So driving around, I got to drive on the path that the Formula One race cars in Monaco and all that stuff is on. I'm like, look at me, I am on the Formula One track. I think I won in my mind. I won vibrationally. I was like, this is awesome. This little cove is like so romantic. And I learned when I was at this private beach, I heard people talking about Italy, and I thought they'd said they were going to have Italian for dinner, but what they said is they were going to Italy for dinner. And my mind was like, I had to ask, excuse me, and I was speaking English, and I said, You're going to Italy for dinner? How close are we to Italy? Again, not even really understanding the geography until I'm actually living it. And they said, we're just an hour away by train and it's €7. And so this is me in Italy. Enjoy, oh, same top again. This is my top of life. I love it. One of my friends gave it to me before I even realized I was a hippie. I was sort of a closeted hippie. In the corporate world, I'm a hippie. In the hippie world, I'm corporate. They want me to balance their books and do stuff like that. I think I'm granola till I'm around real granola people, which I love. But they're like, yeah, no, you're not. But these women met through something called Workaway, which led to my ashram experience and just kept unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. So was that an amuse-bouche? Was that something to wet your whistle to get you maybe interested in the story?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Absolutely.
So then I will stop sharing, although it is fun to share. I will stop sharing so I can, I want to pull up my notes that I made, because what I did, and I know it seems rude that I'm not going to share them with you, but I'm going to be talking to you all, and I just want to be able to see my notes, because I put the notes of the stories, how it unfolded, and then we'll go back through and do the Abraham thing. So, if I was a polite presenter, I would stop at this point and say, what questions? Any questions or any typed questions or anything?
Could you just tell us again, like, how did you get to Europe? Like, how did that come about, that you were in Europe at all? And then how did you get to southern France? I seem to have missed that.
No, you didn't miss it. We jumped in, we began with the end. So we began with the end and said, here's pictures of it. We know the ending of the story. I end up there. Now we reel it back in and go boop, 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 back in time and say, okay, it actually began at an Abe seminar. So that's what we're getting ready to start now, Ted. So you are right on track.
Perfect.
Yeah. But thank you. I'll make sure I make that more clear next time. You know, I've done this live. I've had 100 live seminars I've done on Abe and Law of Attraction, but this is the first time online. So this is episode 1.
Yeah.
So welcome and open all feedback and clarification and all that stuff. So what else?
I just want to go on record as saying I adore that method of storytelling where you jump right in and then you go, oh, and by the way, here's where the story starts. So kudos.
Oh, excellent. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So that's feedback.
Because I'm just making this up.
Yeah, you're doing great.
And was there something else behind there? I thought I heard someone else. I am who I want to be. Okay. So I wanted to give you my background, like my little bio, a little about me. So I described myself one time during an interview as a breakfast cereal. I described myself as a frosted shredded wheat because it has 2 sides, right? And my thinking was, if they didn't think that was interesting or funny, then I didn't want to work with them. But they liked it, and they got into it and tried to describe, well, what would you be? Are you Fruit Loops and you're Captain Crunch? And they kind of got into it. So I remember I liked that a lot. But I feel like I'm a frosted shredded wheat because I have this nutritious side that, you know, cares about the world and whatever this exterior seeming experience is, and statistics and measuring things. And I enjoy competition to some degree. And then I have this game show host side and flow with my go kind of side, and the side that just says, oh, forget the rule, forget the rules, let's just make it up. So I have a corporate kind of side. I have 2 bachelor's degrees, one in communication and one in public speaking. So communication would be a little more interpersonal, right, and intrapersonal. But then public speaking is like more this big game show host kind of show, Toastmasters kind of thing. And what I ended up doing with that degree and a minor in psychology, if anyone's, if that matters to anyone. But for me, it mattered to kind of line up all my classes and have them go somewhere. But I ended up using that and getting into corporate training. But I didn't do it right away. I actually started by working in sales and marketing and then doing stand-up comedy. So I got in stand-up comedy. If you all participate in the T3 calls or another results show kind of thing, so you'll probably hear me talk about Dave Chappelle, like all these people I met and in the industry. And I think I was the reason that Dave Chappelle went to Africa when he did, or I was a cooperative component to some degree. And I think when you hear the story, you'll agree. Some of you heard it I told it at the Ape Fun group, the in-person group one time. So I've done corporate training. So now we either have someone joining us or just leaving us, but I'm just going over my little background and bio. So I've got the degrees. I've got 20 years experience as a corporate trainer, teaching people how to use a computer or leadership-y kind of stuff. And when it comes down to numbers, I added it up, and I've done trainings and full day workshops for about 20,000 people total in person. Largest group I've ever been in front of is 8,000. Largest group I've trained is 250 people, and average group would be about 40 people. And so 20,000 people in full day sessions in person, and over time I've done trained and led about 10,000 people virtually over the computer, usually synchronous, usually in real time, like how we're doing now. So, and right now I'm in the graduate program at UCF, and I'm learning instructional design because I want to create online training, and specifically to help with law of attraction, this whole Abraham, whatever this thing is that's evolving and coming to be. So that's kind of like the nutritious side is okay, I got degrees and I have years experience doing all this stuff. But then there's that frosting side with the stand-up comedy. I lived at an ashram for 3 years. What else did I make a note of? Oh, so interested in Abraham. I was going to say following Abraham, but they correct us and say, they're really following us. I've been in the hot seat 7 times. Animated Abraham, one of the YouTubers, had done an YouTube interview with someone who's been in the hot seat 9 times. And I didn't even really count them, which I know sounds very Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, if that's the right reference, very like, oh, I didn't know, it's several. But when I heard 9 and they were making it like that was maybe the highest amount, I thought, well, I'm probably close. And when I wrote down or thought about the exact questions, and some of them I have recordings of and stuff like that, I was like, well, it's 7 at least. Might be 8, but let's say 7, because I'm 100% sure of that, about 7. And so the animated Abraham had said they were hoping that more people, hot seater people, would connect with them, and so I connected with them. So they're going to be interviewing me at some point, and we'll probably get up to some animated things. I don't know. Karen, could you write down a reminder for me? I want to send folks the link to the animated Abraham that has the hot seater person in it, so they can see that. And in case anybody cares about being in the hot seat, although I'm happy to talk more in detail about this, but it seems like the hot seat is the pinnacle. But the last time I saw them in person, and I'm going in March this year, March 28th, I'm going to see them in person and go to, Asheville. So I'm going to see them in Asheville too. The last seminar I saw with them live, I felt like the entire seminar was exactly what I had on my mind, and then was answered, and questioned and answered the entire seminar. That was intoxicating. So I'm happy to share with anybody how I got into the hot seat, the techniques I use to be in alignment to whatever. But I just want to put a little thing out there that you don't even have to go to have these amazing heart opening or whatever you would like to attract experiences. And if you do go, you could be blissed out the entire time. So I just want to suggest that. But easy for me to say from my perspective, right? Because I sort of have that in my review mirror, so to speak. And what else? Oh, I presented over 100 Abraham focused law of attraction workshops. And now I'm bringing it online. Okay. So any questions? What questions about any of that mix? You saw pictures of me just enjoying myself in France and how things unfolded, like the end of it. And then I wanted to give you a little background on myself, and now we're going into the story. But any questions before we get into that? All right. So it begins with an Abraham seminar. When I first, in this group, before the recording started, they had asked how I heard about Abraham, and I shared the story about how I'd heard about them. But I don't think I went to a live event until maybe a year later, because, I got the CD in like 2007, And I applied the process, and things happened so quickly for me that I didn't really feel the need. You know, I was just living my life and enjoying myself. And then I thought, oh, do they come here? Maybe I'll go see them live. I had no idea because I hadn't seen any videos. I didn't know how many people to expect. I just sort of, so for Ted and everybody, the story now is starting. I should have this is what I consider the beginning of the, what happened next and led to me being in France and having those experiences. I was excited to go to the workshop, but I was really laid back and in the vortex about it. I'm sitting in my car eating a banana and I'm thinking, oh, you know, it starts at whatever time, I'll get there a little early. I show up and they're a well-oiled machine. If those of you who've gone to events, you see they sign people in, they're registering them, they're doing all the stuff. And at the time there were, let's say 300 people in the audience. I think I expected 100, maybe 50. I didn't know how many to expect because you can't tell by the sound on the audio how many people are in the room, and there wasn't discussion about how many people were there. So in my mind, I'm usually in front of the room doing seminars, and I had in my mind what size that was. So it was a hair blowing back, as Abraham would say, experience. But the whole time I was headed there, I kept thinking, I'm going to sit in the front right. I'm going to sit in the front right. When I get there, I'll sit in the front right, eating my banana. I don't have to go in yet, but when I go, I'm gonna. So, but when I get there, my hair's blown back and the room looks full to me. And I sign in kind of, now I'm like a little speechless, which, you know, you have to use your imagination. So I was a little like, okay, let me go inside. I go inside, I stand at the back. And that's when I really felt, and this is for Ted and for everybody, this is where I felt like just because he asked the question about how did I get there, I, in that moment, said, my intuition said to sit in the front right, and I could be meek, and I could just say, but clearly everything's taken. I can see from back here, and I feel a little silly and embarrassed, even though no one knows what in the world I'm thinking. And I could just find an open seat in the back and just sit there and turtle up kind of thing. And I thought, I just remember claiming to myself, my intuition said, this is where to go, so go. So I was like, I'm going up the front, even though I'm probably gonna look silly to everybody that's gonna be like seeing me go, they're gonna be like, where she thinks she's headed? And, but I just said, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna trust my intuition. And I walk up, and as I'm almost to the very front on the right side, something catches my eye. And it was 3 empty seats. They had the Abraham Hicks material on them, but in the middle of a sea of fullness, there were 3 empty seats, and there was a woman with long hair sitting in the 4th seat. And I stopped and said, oh, I'm so excited, thinking, you know, I wanted to go there and I attracted this, and here it is. And I say, these look available. And she said, yes, they just took the reserved stickers off those chairs.
Ooh.
And I say, they had reserved stickers. She said, yeah. And I'm like, I don't even know that happened. And so, but she was sitting in the 4th seat. And I'm like, oh, 3, this is awesome, not just even 1 chair, but there's 3 and there's an end one. So I sit down in the end one, and it's kind of like how Abraham says, like you're excited about it for a moment. Like I sat there feeling all full of myself. Isn't this wonderful? Isn't this great? I trusted my intuition. I got up here, I felt a little silly just because I had that hair blowing back experience. So I was in a little vibrational whatever, and I'm trusting my intuition. I'm so proud of myself. And I sat there, and after about a minute of feeling full of myself, I sort of was like, well, what's next? And so I turned to the woman and I say, well, you were here. Would you like the end seat? Because it's going to fill up. Would you like to be on the end? And she said, well, yes, I would. And she sits at the end, and I sit next to her, and we strike up a conversation. Turns out she lives in France, but also lives in the US, and she's a citizen of the world. And I say, you're the coolest person I know. I'm going to be your friend. And sure enough, I hang out with her and get to know her a little bit, get to know her online. And that's how I start visiting France. And that's what is the entry point. So I'm looking at my notes now. So I start visiting, and I'm visiting and visiting, and I'm going about every 3 months. Now that I have this connection, I'm like, I'm going to continue to go and explore and enjoy it. But I can't help but notice, even though I've attracted quite a bit, you know, a comfortable salary, that I'm spending about $3,000 on a week's vacation to France and doing all these like amazing things. And I started thinking, I remember pacing the parking lot one day, talking to someone on a cell phone. And I was pacing just because I was talking to them and on break from my 9 to 5 kind of thing. And I thought I had the little bit of contrast. And I was like, why visit? Why not just live there? And so I started thinking, what would it take to live there? And I kept visiting and kept exploring the idea. And I found with what I knew at the time, it cost me about $1,000 US a month to be able to live there. And so here I'm spending $3,000 every few months for having 4 weeks vacation over the whole year. I could have lived in France for a whole year. And so I was like, now that sounds interesting to me. So that got my attention. And looking into it, it seemed pretty easy. You know, depending just the way my life was unfolding, you just need to have first I thought I could just go there on my passport, just because I think everything's easy and I could just show up. And then someone said, a cooperative component told me, oh, you know, actually you're going to need a visa. But that process was easy, and I showed up with my documentation and they said, oh, just put that over there and just do this. And as they took my picture for the thing, I wasn't even sure they were going to take my picture. So my picture has my eyes kind of going like this, because I was saying, are you going to take the picture? And it was already done. I mean, that's how quick and easy, even though online to some folks it might look intimidating. But I remember I'd been visiting France and basking, and you saw the gelato and the bread and all that stuff. I mean, and going to Paris many times. So I felt pretty vortexy. So I wasn't surprised that everything worked out.
The next logical step.
Yeah. It was just like, of course, and of course, and of course, and of course this happens. And, Karen, can you remind me to, I have a hot seat, one that I did with Abraham where I talk about my life unfolding like a meal being served, perfect timing. And I just want to share that with everybody, because that's kind of this feeling. And so now I'm thinking about living there, and I'm thinking about doing the math and the money and what it would be like to live there. And I'm thinking about where would I live? And I get inspired, like in the middle of the night in the US time, to go online and just start Googling or finding, you know, places to live. Kind of like a Craigslist for France kind of thing. So I go on this, I think it's Le Bon Coin or something, the good corner. And I go on that, somehow I find that estate that many of you saw in the beginning. So it has that big house with the pool house where I was, you know, floating around, and with Booty Call Kitty. I found that by contacting them in the middle of the night, my time, and it was available, and yes, an easy call, next day Skype and money transfer. And that's how easy that was. So then as things are really falling in place like that, before I know it, I'm letting my employer at the time know that I'm going to be moving to France. And how cool is that when people are asking you, so what are you doing today? France. When moving to France is your answer, you want to be asked that question a lot. So I really enjoyed the day I was actually moving. I would sort of linger when I had interactions with people, just sort of like, how's your day going? Great. Oh, what are you doing? Well, I'm moving to France. Yeah. Awesome. But I had all these things in place. And one of the deals with getting the visa was being a student to learn French. And the French culture seems to really value education. There's a ton of universities in Toulouse. People from all over the globe come to study. I was the only American that was there. Everyone was from a different country that was there to learn French, that was there on a visa and for the year to learn French. And the French language was, I don't know if it was challenging. It was a little challenging, but it was an immersion kind of thing. But the French people are so, at least the ones that I attracted my interactions with, they were so appreciative of just trying to speak French. And I think maybe they have a PR agent that says, encourage Americans to speak French, because they would tell me my accent was adorable, trop mignon, and that they really enjoyed it. And so then I would say things like, avec grand plaisir, you know, meaning thank you very much. And they would sometimes say, quoi? And I would say, avec grand plaisir, because our language is sing-songy like that. Their language is monotone. And so they often didn't understand me. It was like, I was like, bong, bong, bong. And they were like, and it was like, avec grand plaisir. And I'd be like, that's what I said, avec grand plaisir. But they were, it was fun to learn French. It was fun to be able to say it. Every day going to school, I sampled a different croissant from a different bakery and looked at the architecture and the area of Toulouse is known for having a big employer of Airbus, kind of like Orlando's known for having Disney. And I just had this idea that, oh, I'm totally going to work for Airbus. And you all have seen the pictures of me being the green lady during the team building event. So here's the story part of that. So I had this idea I was going to work for Toulouse, but it didn't make sense. Like, I'm glad I really didn't say it out loud to anyone, because the way, what I mean is the way people tend to get jobs in France is they show up physically with their CV, with their curriculum vitae, with their resume. They physically show up, they have a handwritten cover letter, at least that's the way it was a few years ago, and they present themselves. And it's kind of formal, but it's in person. If you try to do that in most American companies, they'd be like, go online and don't be coming around here. That would just seem odd. But so I learned the French culture. So I was like, okay, that's how I'm going to get to Toulouse. To the Airbus. I'm going to show up. Well, their company is like gated, like Get Smart and protected. And anyone get that with an internet? It is locked up. You have to pass to get in. You can't it's like trying to go to an airport or something and get in and be like, hi, I just want to give you my resume. So I was like, how is this going to work out? But one night I looked at how much, how Abraham talks about the money in the bank and paying attention to what is. Or maybe there's a story about Jerry and how he counted how many cans of beans he had. And he always knew, do you guys know that one where he'd always have more beans, he would never run out? I don't know, maybe that's an older story. But I was kind of looking at it, I was like, well, I decided to go to France when I had 6 months expenses, what I figured would last about 6 months, figuring it would work out. And if it didn't work out, I could come back to the States. Well, I really enjoyed it and I wanted it to work out. So now I'm there, it's like month 4. And I'm like, okay, now's the time where something works out. So it'd be really nice. So my desire, kind of was like wanting something to work out. And I went online and read that the training company is separate from Airbus, but they contract with Airbus. And the person who was the contact person was going to be on vacation till such and such a day. And I decided to myself, well then, I'm going to send an email and I will show up 2 days after her return date. And that's what I'm going to do. And I was able to, sleep soundly. Time went by. The vacation, because in French, most people have 8 weeks vacation. Regular people have 8 weeks vacation, and they take the month of August off culturally. Although that might be changing a little bit, but it's really delightful. They enjoy they don't even call it work-life balance. They say, most French people that I met would say the job is just a job. Life is life. It's just really their passion for life, and living and family is really intoxicating. So I wanted to stay there and experience more of it. And so I told myself, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it until whatever that date is. And then I find myself through the transportation system, and I show up. Whenever I was inspired to go, all of a sudden my feet are moving. Now my feet, which have bright white American tennis shoes on, jeans, I'm the stereotypical American backpack. I am marching myself from my French class, and I'm going. Apparently my feet are taking me to this location I know. I looked up and I had my CV, and I just show up there. Well, when I show up there, there's a little bit of I don't know what to call it, like a kerfuffle or something going on. And I'm thinking, well, this is interesting that I attracted this kind of thing that's going on. But it turns out the person who was there to try to solve the problem was the decision maker for the position that they'd hire me for. So she sees me, she says, can I help you? And I explain why I'm there. And she says, oh, I'm the person you're looking for. I remember your email. Excuse me, just move. Which normally she would have been tucked away like a pheasant under glass, or a museum piece. I would not necessarily have access to her. But because of this desire and this following the impulse, all of a sudden I rendezvous with her. And to me, it didn't matter that I was in whatever I was in. I'm presenting my resume and the handwritten thing with the idea that when I'm invited back for the interview, then I'll look in the way they would expect a trainer and presenter to do. And that's exactly what happened. And she found this specialty that she thought I'd be good at, to do this facilitation thing, and hired and negotiated. It was $1,000 a day. Awesome. They would pay you, whoever contracted with them, whatever their pay rate was, if they took, I think it was 2 hours of your time. If they scheduled 2 hours of your time to do a project management meeting, you got paid the whole rate. Now, perhaps that's in consulting in the US. I don't know, but it was delightful in France. One of the cool things about that organization, I got to lead an event in Madrid in this huge Airbus hangar, and they took us to the stadium. I don't know if anybody's into soccer, but they took us into the stadium place and into the locker room where all the famous soccer players. Nobody was there. Completely empty stadium. Felt like a celebrity, Michael Jackson or somebody, where they closed down something so the celebrity can go tour it. And with a small group of people, we got to go and tour it. So that was just another awesome thing that happened. And so then I'm living there, I'm working at Airbus, I'm whatever days I want to work, and then traveling around. That's when the friend and the niece and the Riviera thing happened. That's when I was like, sure, I'll roll the dice and go to whatever this Nice place is and meet you. And then I had the Riviera. And it's interesting, the sand on the Riviera isn't sand. The beaches are mostly rocks. If a few have sand like we would think of in Florida beaches. But the one in Nice is like relatively large stones. And that's where I got to stay at the Negresco, because I missed the train, because I was inspired to, no, let my friends be to the airport. And I just kept thinking how nice it was to be there. And that's when I got to the private beach and learned about Italy. And that's how I found myself in Italy. I thought Italy was amazing enough. And that's when I learned about things that would take me later to an ashram. And where I spent 3 delightful years on this 80-acre ashram with people who just wanted to love everyone and be of service. Awesome time. So it's the idea of a dream. It wasn't necessarily a fixed dream that I had. It was this dream that unfolded. Oh, I want this now, and then I want this, and then I would like that chocolate gelato that's shaped like a flower. And then I would like to go pet the horses that live near where my place is with Booty Call Kitty. And it just kept unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And I know it seems kind of crazy, like why didn't I just stay there forever? And why aren't I Skyping you from there? Because then it felt, as wonderful as it felt, I felt called to something else. And then that was wonderful, and here I am. So that is the story of the sequential. Oh, you know what I meant to tell you all? Oh, I'm going to ask for questions in just a minute, but I left out one of my favorite parts. Remember I said that they teach English over the phone? So I didn't know that one day until living there and visiting it. So one day I was I kind of was lost, if I'm honest about it. But I like to think I'm in the right place, so I don't usually say that I'm lost. But I was a little, like, not where I had intended to be. And I noticed a sign on the door that I loosely translated as "they teach English." And I thought to myself, because I'm all full of myself having these experiences, and this is before I moved there. I was just visiting. And I thought to myself, I can teach English. I speak English. I could probably teach English to people, and let me go ahead and meet these people. Well, I go up the 3 flights of stairs. Most of the buildings in France are only 5 stories tall. So the light, there's so much light around. It's amazing. Even in Paris, there's a small section that's these high-rise building called La Défense, I think is my pronunciation. And so I went up the 3 flights of stairs, and I knock at the door, but I open the door and I go in, and I could hear someone's having English lesson in the back, but no one can see me and I can't see them. And I stand there a little while, and I just came up because I saw the sign, and I said, yeah, I could do that. I could teach English. And thinking it'll be classes at this beautiful place in this beautiful city square, I pull out of my backpack, because I was wearing a backpack. I pull out of my backpack what I called a resume, they called a CV. It had, remember I tell you about my croissant addiction I had over there, 1 a day? So 1 day at a time, 1 croissant at a time. And I found a favorite bakery that I would go to that eventually that I liked. But it had a little bit of the croissant butter. So it's like a little stained and oily on the fancy resume paper. And I just went ahead and left it. I said, that's the copy I got. I'm going to leave it on the desk. I wrote a little note. Hey, whatever I said, hey, I'd be an American and I would like to work for you. I don't know what I said, but I said something like that, and I left it. And before I returned back to the US that trip, I had a call from the owner of the small boutique English company, and she explained to me what they do, that they do it over the phone, and we made a connection. So how delightful is that, right? Because I'm thinking, would you ever think wearing like whatever touristy casual clothes, going up with this resume that's smeared with stuff, like that's ever going to lead to anything? But I was like, I'm doing it. I'm inspired to do it, and I'm going to do it. And then I sort of forgot about it. And so what she called, then when I'm back in the States, like a month, she calls one of her English teachers, something happened. She was having a baby or something was happening, so she wasn't available. So I started teaching English in the US. In addition to my full-time thingy, I started teaching English in the US, and there's a 6-hour time difference, so I could be flexible and do it really early in the morning. So I had that lined up before I even went. So that's what I mean. I was on vacation, I had this idea, then I had this thing, then that fell into place. I think it was Dory that said next logical step. So everything just fell into place like I think how Esther talks about Jerry running in the pond, in the creek, and how the rock was always right there to meet him. And I did that teaching English on the phone for the 2 years I was there. And then when I was living at the ashram, it was a way to earn income and be anywhere in the world. I mean, I thought, who's cooler than me? Well, at the time when I was in Europe and I was in Italy, talking to people who lived in France in English as a native speaker, I was like, talk about dream experience. And then the money just gets direct deposited. Thank you very much. So what questions, anything you might have now before we might take a look at what I think are some of the Abraham underpinnings and then hear what you all think. Maybe yes, maybe no. Nothing typed, everything ready to go on. So I'm going to go back over my list. You might think of something. So what I think it began with when I had that inspiration, remember I had the starting point that began with that seminar that I was inspired to go to the front right, even when it seemed ridiculous to go to the front right, at least at the emotional place I was on that emotional scale. But I did it, and I believe claiming that led to all the other interesting things. And what came to mind again and again during this, as this French extravaganza unfolded, is how Abraham talks about alignment trumps everything. Alignment trumps everything. So I just kept myself in the best mood, which is easy to do when I've already, you may join me on when I share stories about doubling my salary. So I was at the job, I doubled my salary and got a $15,000 relocation bonus. They didn't even ask for receipts. I didn't have to prove anything. And it only cost me $1,000, I think, to move my car and maybe a little bit of money to move my stuff from my apartment. But I just got a check for $15,000 and was told it would have been more if they would have known earlier in the negotiation process. So I had that, that's what was happening. And I met the person with France and started visiting France and was spending the $3,000 every 3 months to do that because it seemed like a good idea. But it had that sort of, all that momentum was behind me to do this. And I was like, well, of course, let them eat cake if they don't have bread. So it was a very wonderful flowing experience. So then when I did experience contrast, it's not that I'm not without contrast. I remember when I was pacing in the parking lot and kind of a little frustrated talking to my friend on the phone. And I was thinking, well, how much am I spending and how much would it be? I mean, that was a little contrasty. That wasn't a high vibe. That was like a little I would say it was that frustration. But that sort of led to, when I relaxed that a little bit, then that led to the idea about, well, why don't I look to see how much it costs to live there? Because I had this idea, don't be ridiculous. It's going to be outrageous and you can't do it. I sort of had that idea, even though I think of myself as an optimist and really open-minded person. I had, some of those, beliefs going on. And once I investigated it, all I would tell myself was, as I look at the different places to live and going to school, I just kept using that Abraham technique as, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? So I'm sharing these techniques with you all to reinforce them for myself and because it's fun to talk about this stuff, but also so you can have another example of something working out and maybe it'll trigger it in you and it'll be something you'll be able to do more organically the next time. With the booty call kitty, that just made me feel like I really can be or do or have anything. Here I am, this pool house of this estate. And oh, by the way, I would like a cat to cuddle with me. But I don't want a litter box because I'm not supposed to have a pet. So could you work that out, universe? And it makes me think of the phrase cooperative components. I mean, that cat was like, I don't want to be with the blended household. It was like, I want to find my own way. And so there I was, and I wanted the cat, and we matched up, and it was just across the street. La love it. And yeah,
I have a question.
yes.
Do you see a difference between happiness and alignment? Let me explain what I mean. I had an aunt and uncle, and they were just the happiest people. And they lived in the same house for 40, 50 years. And every time we went to visit, it was wonderful to see them because they were just so happy. And my mother used to comment about it, like just how wonderful they were because they were so warm and happy and hospitable. And it was also interesting because nothing ever changed. It was like watching like the comic strip Blondie, you know,
Yeah.
like you can read the comic strip for 40 years and they're always the same and they never get older. And anyway,
Right.
that was my Aunt Sarah and Uncle Jack. And he had a sign in his basement, his man cave, and it said, "What me worry," you know, from Mad Magazine.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was his philosophy. But it was really interesting because they didn't have any of the experiences that you're talking about. They never went to Europe. They never had fantastic increases in salary. Nothing really changed except that they were happy. So what I'm noticing is that there's a difference between alignment and happiness. So my question is, do you see that? And if you do, then what are you aligning with that would account for the difference?
Oh, this is a good question. Here's how I see this is it's almost like different flavors of ice cream. So who are they to your aunt and uncle?
Yeah.
Your aunt and uncle. So for me, my flavor of ice cream might be Rocky Road. Like as in the real world, I like chocolate ice cream with things in it. Some people like French vanilla with the bean flecks. Thank you very much. And that's what they like. And Abraham talks a lot about favorite flavor of ice cream and us just enjoying our ice cream, not trying to convince someone else, because then we come back to ours and we're like, oh, I thought I liked it. So they might, and she talks about, they talk about different drama levels. So I'm a little dramatic, right? Compared to theater people, I'm phoning it in. But compared to a introvert, I'm dramatic. So she says everybody gets to control the amount of contrast and drama, momentum, and ups and downs and kind of stuff, and how it goes. And I think I would say that they're in alignment because they were attracting exactly what I would think if you're around happy people to me, and I'm interested, you know, anyone else in the group has another opinion. I think the happiness is alignment, and they're just attracting this nice, even flow. Not everyone wants to ride down the rapids, or not everyone wants that all the time. So you met them at a time in their life when they were just easy peasy.
Right. So here's where my question goes. Like I know also plenty of people that are living a life that's somewhat similar to my aunt and uncle, but they would love to go spend a year in Europe, and they feel like
different.
And they feel like they can't, and because of whatever reasons, you know, the usual. And so my question is, when you say alignment,
can you back up though? Can you back up there, Ted? When you said they're living lives like your aunt and uncle,
they're not happy though.
I would challenge that. Yeah, I think that's Dory I hear. I would challenge that and say,
Melanie.
You're not saying the same things. Who is that?
It's Melanie.
Melanie, thank you, Melanie. Because I'm looking at my little teleprompter kind of thing, so I don't have the screens up. I'm just talking to you all through this. But when you talked about your aunt and uncle, you were, you know, rightfully so. I don't know what I want to say, like effusive in your compliments, and we sort of felt so good. It just felt so good to be around them. When you talk about other people that are living a life like them, that was it, period, end. You know, wasn't much that story. So I would say they might have the same level of momentum and activity, but the emotional component seems very different.
Yeah. So the question then is, like I can easily think of a dozen different people that are living a certain life where they're reasonably happy.
Yeah.
but they would love to have more money. They would love to have, you know, a dream come true, live in the south of France for a year. And so what I'm getting at is, like, you can be happy and nothing changes. So what is alignment? Try to explain to me, like, what does alignment mean that all of a sudden you're riding the rapids and finding yourself on your way to Europe and having this completely different experience from that's uniquely yours, you know? There just seems to be a qualitative difference between alignment and just being happy.
Well, here's what I'm going to say about that, and we'll see what folks think. So I think the people who are leading seemingly reasonable, happy lives, I think you said, but you think they want more, they say they want more, and it's just not happening for them, they're not attracting it.
Right.
I think it has to do with splitting our energy, dividing our energy. They want it, but they want it, but they want it, but. So things keep changing, but they're changing no more the same. Just to repeat Abraham's words, right? So with me, I had been, I should have said this before. So before any of these processes or anything, the Abraham CD, when that came out sometime in 2007 or whatever it was, I started meditating every day. Now I was doing it differently than I'm doing it now, but I had an intention that I'm meditating, and I sat there, but really I was soothing myself, but that's beautiful. That's what I needed at the time. So I was meditating every day, and I was looking for things to appreciate every day.
Yeah.
And so I had, it's almost like I sort of got my energy lined up going in one direction, and then it was easy to get momentum and have things unfold. If I had been, things are okay, but I wish it was more, but I guess it's not so bad, but I think that's the difference. You don't line up. It gets disparate. You're fighting for your limitations, and then you're desiring something, but it balances out at the end of the day, and you don't feel much movement, and it doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
But if you can keep your energy, if you can catch yourself when you start fighting for your limitations, or catch yourself when you say, but I don't even know how this would happen, or it could never happen, or whatever, and you can rein in. I often call myself a thought adjuster. I like to help people rein in their thoughts, but really it's the vibration that matters. But somehow I feel like I can hear in people's words that something's a little out of alignment, and we can nudge it into going the direction they want.
I just heard you say something that seems key to me. You said you were appreciating. And what I found is that what we're appreciating is what we attract. What we're appreciating is where we're starting to create momentum. And I'll just share briefly a little story, because we have a unique synchronicity going on. I'm living in a villa, 2 houses on the same property, all fenced in with a swimming pool. And if I were to take a picture from the aerial view, it would look almost exactly where you stayed in the south of France. And it's very, very interesting. I never dreamed of living in a villa. It never even occurred to me that it was possible. And, but what I had been doing prior is appreciating sunrises and sunsets and a place called Dolphin Heads, and just loving and loving and loving all of that. And all of a sudden, that's where I'm living. I'm living on a hilltop where the front faces east over the Coral Sea, and the back faces west over beautiful scenery. And I'm up on a hill, so I can see both directions, and it's absolutely incredible. And I really account for that through pure appreciation, and not even realizing that this physically was going to come into my experience. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I agree. I think Abraham would probably say, even though you say you didn't imagine living in this house, but you put pieces of it, you put beauty and elegance, you put the essence of it, right? And then the essence of it the essence of it was contained in this. It could have been a slightly different villa or a slightly different style, but the essence of it was contained. I think they say there's 60 things or more ready to pop into our experience that could be satisfying for us, and that popped into yours. For me, I had a crush on trees at the time. And so if you all hear the hot seat, I'll put the link in comments after this is posted. And something happened. I must have been just happy in an alignment and sort of accidentally. And I sort of fell in love with trees and found myself staring at them. And it's almost what I think people take substances to feel like. I sort of felt like that with nature. And so on my lunch breaks, when I still work traditional 9 to 5, I would just go out and look out windows and stare at trees. And I felt like they were swaying. I don't know. It just was intoxicating to me. And that took place, that tree intoxication, appreciation felt like to me, just in love and appreciation. I felt that was such a general thing, hanging out with trees. It didn't matter if they were in a park or in a parking lot, or I was just like, let me look, let me touch it. It was just, I was like, am I losing my mind? I might be losing, but it's okay. I might be, but it's so delightful, and who really cares? It seems harmless enough. And so the hot seat, one of the hot seat things was right after that, and she talks about me being in the vortex, and it's really interesting. And so I just decided to go with it, because by that time I'd already gotten all the money things and help. Everything was on all cylinders. So life experience had taught me. I sort of trusted the Abraham, my attraction of this content, that it would have something in it for me. And so it was easy for me to just sort of stare at trees and be happy. I thought maybe I heard another question or comment or something.
Well, I'll just throw in one more comment about my aunt and uncle. As you were talking, what I realized is if I'd had a conversation with them, and I would say, don't you guys ever want to go to Europe? They'd go, why? That wasn't something they appreciated. It wasn't where their energy was flowing. So it's very interesting.
They wanted to sort of put down roots or do whatever they were doing. That felt good to them. And that's sort of even where somebody else might want to jump around, it's all, we get to choose all different pathways that we want to do. But I think I understand the feeling, and thank you, Ted, for asking these questions. And other people might ask later or type them out, or I really appreciate all this interaction. And it's fun. And the idea that I found myself sometimes being so excited about the things I'm excited about, I can't imagine why somebody else wouldn't want to do it. I call it the boomerang theory. I don't know what to call it. When I'm trying to convince someone, like I remember trying to convince someone they should be a life coach, and then all of a sudden I started doing seminars because they weren't that interested. And I'm like, how can you not be interested with everything online and everything in seminars that you're doing? But I so pushed and was trying to convince them that it ricocheted. And I said, well, all right, I'm going to do it. And I started it, and it was delightful. I did 100 Abraham Hicks Law of Attraction seminars. Sometimes that's how I don't always know what I want, but I wanted them to want it. Now, why don't you like this ice cream? Oh, I like this ice cream. Oh, funny. So where were we? Let's see. I'm looking at my notes to see so then I'm in working for Airbus. And then I have that idea. Yeah. So for me, the Airbus thing was I had really strong desire. Like that day I kind of sat, I don't really look at my budgets and bills and stuff. I just don't, I kind of do it once. I kind of set it and forget it. I like to play the abundance game. I always carry at least $100 with me. I like to play I could get this, I could get that. And really, each time it's fresh and it resets. I could get this. That would be lovely. Or I could get that, and I really enjoy that and have had great results with this, especially since I heard Abraham say everyone that did that with that kind of feeling of it had results. And so that gave me more momentum to want to play it. So I felt really confident that things would work out, but I spent that one hour that evening looking at finances and mapping out, kind of playing around with the numbers. And I was like, I didn't want to play around with the numbers. I just wanted more to flow in. And I was like, that's it. Let's make it happen online. And found it, and then met the person in person. So to me, that's desire without resistance would be the Abraham thing I would speak to about that. And then the whole thing about, it was so kind of me to visit my French friend who has family in Nice, because I'm such a kind person. I'm in France, I'm going to go visit her. And I got to the Riviera. So being in the Riviera, it was just the Abraham Hicks, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. And that sometimes when you follow your inspiration, it's not just handwriting in the sky. Like there wasn't this thing that said, in the sky, a burning bush or something that said, contact this woman, Helene, you're going to have an amazing time in the Riviera. It was just, I think I'll respond to her post. I'll go. I'm a nice person. It's a couple hours away, apparently. It'll be nice. So it's a very small thing. I think that's like, to me, it reminds me of the Abraham story about how Esther was interested one day after meditation to check out the sound system in her house, which she'd never been interested in before. And then the next day she wanted to move furniture around, and she met the guy that wanted to be the rapper in Atlanta. It's a funny thing to follow a small inspiration. And it's not until the story unfolds that then you can go back and point to it. But I just heard Abraham say recently on a YouTube, they said it's valuable when you have experiences you like to look backwards and see what was that thing that started it.
I for myself, this is Melanie. Sometimes I'm amazed how subtle and small. I guess I imagine that my, those intuitive suggestions were going to be big, and usually they're just little things. I mean, and I've just
go right instead of left.
I've just decided I follow that and just see where it goes. And
it's really delightful. It is like you think, well, I should get gas, and then sometimes I tell myself, no, I can wait, but that feels a little resistant. To say, oh, I can wait. That's like pushing against it. I was like, yeah, I should get gas. Seems like a good idea. But then I rationalized, but it's not according to how my schedule, whatever I want to fit it into. I should stop. So I really enjoyed that. I think you'll enjoy that too, Melanie. It's just, you just follow like little, one of the teachers, Bashar, and Abraham says that they're similar energy. So Karen, maybe I could share bashar.org, that website, just as in case folks want to explore that, because Abraham has a YouTube. And if you can make a note, Karen, as well, that and thank you so much for doing this, because I make promises about bonus content and I want to make sure to include it. That there's a YouTube that talks about what was I going to say about his highest excitement? There is I'll think of it with the Bashar content. He says we leave breadcrumb trails for ourselves, and so by following whatever's the most interesting, and highest excitement seems like it's going to be like bouncing off the walls. Sometimes the most exciting thing to do is to take a nap, or the most interesting thing, the thing that you feel called to do is to read a book, or it might not seem that dramatic, but by following that, the momentum builds and builds and builds and builds.
Yes. So I'll just say this quickly, because I like to hear the rest of the beginning of the results, what you use. About a week ago, during the holidays, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, I was really like craving walking with a friend of mine. And I thought, it's the holidays. She's got family. Her husband lives in another state. I'm sure he'd be here or she'd be there or whatever. Right. And just thought, well, it'll happen. And then just in the last few days, she texted me and said, hey, all day, you want to get together? Wow. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. And I kept thinking, I want to walk and maybe have lunch. And first I thought, I'm thinking, what is she going to think? What does she want to do? Maybe she just want to walk and not have lunch, or have lunch and then or not walk. I'm thinking in my head, I thought, you know what? This is what you really would like to do. You're just really wanting to walk and have lunch. So that's what I suggested. And she said, yeah, that sounds great. And we ended up trying a new place. It was a beautiful day. Yeah. And I just let it just kind of happen. And the restaurant was great where we ate. I loved the food. It was so relaxing. I got to see her house. I mean, it's like you're saying, it was just like really smooth, easy, nothing to worry about unfolding. That was just very pleasurable. So, but like I said, it's different from the big fireworks,
But we don't always want big fireworks all the time. Yeah. And by saying it's not big fireworks, I want to say I want to have moments of ease and flow, and then I want some exciting moments, and then I want to go back to ease, and then I want to have interesting or focused, or you want to be able to kind of play in all areas. So I try to, and a happy life is a series of happy moments. So
Yeah.
when you're happy and happy and happy
And happy and happy.
yeah. So it's just a different, what intensity level do you want it? Because I'm sure at the time you were pretty happy because you had a little bit of, is
Oh,
it going to
yeah.
work out? I'm taking a risk. Should I suggest it? I don't know. And then you did, you followed your impulse. You said, well, I want what I want. I posted something. I said, you know, kind of paraphrasing what I feel from Abraham is it's okay to want what you want just because you want it.
Yeah.
So you wanted what you wanted to do the walk and do lunch. And Bashar talks about, I mean, 80 to 90% Abraham Hicks, and sometimes a little other teachers like Bashar or Wayne Dyer, some other teachers kind of flavor, at least for me, what I enjoy. And Bashar talks about if we feel compelled to do something, there's someone else that is wanting it. So whether it's calls like this or the suggestion of the walk and the lunch, that you're feeling compelled that there was something you wanted, it may have been something your friend was pulling, would be kind of the Bashar idea, that it's this energy exchange. So trust whatever we feel inspired to do, there is a person that is inspired to receive it.
Good.
Yeah, it is really, 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 really good. Wow, so that is that. We went through, we looked at the pictures for the dream life. Then we went through the chronological, what happened. And then we went back through and said technique, 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 or main idea, or, you know, topic or focus area or something like that, that I believe was a component of it. And then this would be where we just have some open questions. I wanted to check to see what, we do have another story, but we also talked about maybe taking a little intermission for a few minutes. So I just want to see where everybody's at.
Well,
I'm okay.
what's so
Keep
much a
going.
question,
There
but
is.
you mentioned about the rap story and the sound system, right? And it's a synchronicity because I've posted in the group how I'm now on the cruises for the 2019 workshops and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham broke into the story about, you know, how she called the couple of men and everything, and how the gentleman said, oh, I'm moving back to, I think it's Alabama.
Atlanta.
Yeah. You have to excuse me. Wherever he was from, it began with an A, and I grabbed Alabama. It might be somewhere else. But the story,
Alabama.
you know, Abraham was telling this story, and the gentleman in the hot seat who was asking his question suddenly said, oh, I'm from Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
I burst out laughing at that point, just thinking, you know, talk about a synchronicity where Abraham grabbed a story from Esther's, you know, because of many stories they fall back on. And I just thought, oh, I've heard, as it is with a lot of Abraham recordings, I think, oh, I've heard this before. I've heard this before. But my mindset is, hang on, person in the hot seat may have never heard this question, you know, the stories before. But as soon as that bloke said, oh, I'm from Alabama, I was like, so Abraham grabbed a relative story straight away that resonated with the person in the hot seat and everything.
That's awesome.
Like I say, there's a lot of synchronicities that when you start listening a bit deeper, you think, oh, just wanted to share that and everything. I didn't want to break the flow of the conversation and the group.
There's no such thing, Jonathan. You are in the flow.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like when I didn't know I was going to pick an aerial picture of the place I lived. I was just, okay, I'm going to put together some ideas. You know, this had unfolded over the past couple of weeks. So I said, I'm going to put together some images. And why I went to Google Maps and got them, I could have just shown pictures of the house, but I had the idea, oh, what does it look like? And then that's what Ted gets to see and say, oh, from an aerial view. So that was a synchronicity, right, for Ted. And So why was I called and inspired? But I just try to get myself feeling as happy as I can as I'm preparing it, because I feel like that's my only job, is to feel good as I can doing whatever I'm doing, and putting that together. And I made that choice, and I wanted to make sure I could share my screen, and Karen did a little tech run through with me. And then I'm in a different place and different lighting and different way I'm doing it. So everything was different. But yeah, I kind of was like, oh, I'm going to do this so I can show those images. That's kind of funny.
And I've always wanted to go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. So that's my synchronicity.
Yeah, it is.
You're talking about that.
It is
And
awesome. And I have a crush. I have lots of crushes. I have a crush on the Champs-Élysées. That's how it's said. These boulevards are expansive, and you can't help but feel everything's so large scale and beautiful and just permanent. Whereas growing up in Florida, although I've lived other places, things are transitory, and it's like a pop-up hot dog stand, which is, hey, there's a lot of freedom in that. It's a lot of fun, but it's not. I like to explore. Let me see what the range is, and let me see all the colors of the rainbow or flavors of ice cream, and I'll sort of pick. Now I get to explore my favorite flavor. So when you're at Champs-Élysées with the Arc de Triomphe, I don't know why I'm trying to say it French ways, but I didn't know that you could go up inside it. Like, I didn't do the touristy things. I just kind of experienced the world how it came in front of me. So I didn't know you could go up inside, and I'm like, that's a reason to go back. But it's so expansive and beautiful that you do feel a little bit like this. And then if you can get on one of these boat restaurant things to go down, what's that water that's in Paris?
The Seine.
The Seine, with like the left bank and right bank. Oh, you could get on one of those. Oh, yeah. Whose desire was it to go to Paris?
Melanie.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's a thing. You will love all of it. But I encourage you to kind of look at all and figure out what you want to do, and have, like, what I did was I picked the things that seemed to have the most compelling thing for me. And
Okay.
I never went inside the Louvre. I just didn't feel it, even though there's a lot of pressure to do a should. You've come all this way, you should, you have to say, you looked at the moment. There's a little bit of cultural thing about that. I just kind of stuck to my intuition or whatever, inspiration, and I just chose a different path and did the parts of Paris I really enjoyed. But yeah, how wonderful.
So
Thank you. Great suggestion.
I have a question for you. If somebody has never had anything like this happen, like living for a year in the south of France, and that's their dream,
Yeah.
what would you say to them to get them started? Like,
Okay, let's see. They've never had anything. Well, first of all, I would help them with.
yeah. So they're living a life like my aunt and uncle, but all of a sudden they, oh, I've always wanted to live in the south of France for a whole year.
Okay, it's a little tricky because your aunt and uncle, they couldn't be
But I
living
really can't afford it, and I don't know
They
how.
couldn't be living. They wouldn't be living exactly
Okay.
like your aunt and uncle. They'd be more like those other people who wanted it
With
but
resistance.
didn't know how to get it.
Fair enough.
Tell Melanie how she can get
But the first,
her.
workaway.info. Do workaway.info. I should include, Karen, if you can include that link for me, workaway, and then it's dot instead of com, info, workaway.info. And that's where you can find all that. You could vacation in Paris and stay in Paris as an exchange just for teaching English, to being just a native speaker teaching English, and find English lessons online, and then just sort of say, get your airfare, maybe $800. I don't know how much airfare is round trip.
Yeah.
And then
So those are specific.
You talk about energetically.
I'm talking about the subject here is living your dream, right? And so what I'm looking for is, do you have a formula for living your dream? Is there a formula for living your dream?
Sure.
And
And I'm really just using Abraham's formula. So if I had someone that came to me and said, I want to be living a life that feels exciting to me and enlivening, and I'm not doing it, and I've never had anything like this happen to me before.
Yeah.
First of all, I would say to them, well, I'm a thought adjuster. So we're going to take a look at what you just said.
Yeah.
So you said you've never had anything like this before, and I have a feeling you're diminishing so many wonderful things. You just aren't appreciating all the things you already have. Physical health, breathing in and out. Like, let's start small. Let's start, and that's not small, really, right? having health, having ease. Maybe they have money flow. Maybe they have relationships. Let's look at those areas and let's put the energy in, because if what you focus on is what you attract,
Right.
if you're focused on, but not me, but the other person is getting it. They were inherited. They were born into it. I don't have a path. I don't have a way. That's all you're going to attract is those closed doors. But if you can get yourself somehow to either ratchet up the desire, I want it, and they can want it without resistance. Because I wanted, once I moved out to California after I learned about the Abraham thing, as soon as I went out there, I wanted to be back with my best friend and her little daughter, who was like 3 at the time. And I wanted it, and without resistance. And that's how I ended up doubling my salary plus that relocation fee. So I would encourage them to say, you are creating, I mean, I would just be using Abraham, what I learned from them, right? I would say, you are, you either kind of, it comes down to, do you believe you're creating your experience of reality or not? And it's okay if you don't, because maybe we can sort of loosen that up and you can have some experiences with it. And that's the story of the woman that does the blue glass and butterflies and with feather, is that it? So just let's talk about things that you have no emotional attachment to, and just focus on them. Just focus on how beautiful a seashell looks, and how sometimes it has a little sand in it. It's a little gritty. And if you can focus on that and kind of appreciate this seashell, imaginary seashell, then seashells will show up at you. I think Abraham has talked about Esther and Jerry doing it with pennies. So I might try that. I might try several different things, but I probably would say, do you wish you could believe that you are creating your experience of reality? Would that be, would you like that? We'd have to find some kind of starting point. And then I'd probably get them to look at encourage them, get them, it's too aggressive. And I don't really care. If they want to delay their pleasure and have a big shebang at the end, or not until they croak, that's all right. I'm not going to get myself all spun up about that in knots, but I would say, well, why don't you look at all the wonderful things you have? And what has happened, at least in my experience with these 100 law of attraction sessions and in-person kind of stuff I've done, if people just do a little bit, if they just kind of take it like a little Johnny Appleseed seed. I've heard people say they've tried to channel their inner Sheila, and something and I'm like, sure, okay. So they're living their life. They've listened to me. Somehow they heard me or were exposed to me. Kind of sounds like a contagion or something, but they got exposed to me. And I seem to be enjoying my ice cream cone, and they kind of want that, but they're not sure how to get it. And then later they're living their life and they're like, a flat tire, huh? Well, what would Sheila have to say about this? Well, I've had a wonderful flat tire experience where I got to know someone I was driving the car, that we connected on a level, and I learned about math and things that I wouldn't have learned. And it was like a really cool experience for a flat tire. So that's what Sheila would think about that. I'd be looking, I know there's something in it for me. Life is happening for me, not to me. So I mean, just a little bit of that personal experience is what I think would be the lesson. Like I would just try to be myself and find maybe this way in, maybe that way in, maybe that way in, maybe, okay, maybe not. But I would do it just as long as it's fun, like let's trying to find a way in. And then, okay, maybe it's not fun. Sometimes it clicks and they're like, oh, what about this? And they start asking, well, can I drink bleach or whatever? And those are buying signals. I can work with that. But sometimes they just shut down and say, no, it won't work for me. But that's okay, because you plant a seed. So I would try to infect them with my enthusiasm and my belief that this is working for me. And wouldn't it be nice if it worked for them? And what's happened for me time and time again is people communicate with me by email or phone or text, and and I've already forgotten about the interaction, right? Because to me it was meaningful and connected in the moment, but I'm not attached to it. And then they circle back around and they're like, oh my goodness, it's because of you. And I channeled my inner Sheila and I looked at it differently. And I'm like, yeah, well, it all goes back to the Abraham Hicks material, and that's how I feel about doing stuff for them. And I'm just trying to be maybe the next, they say we can be teachers. We don't have to be perfect. A lot of people wait to be perfect. I say, well, I think it's pretty good. I got things pretty good. And maybe I can help the people close to me as I'm looking up to connecting with source of my inner being to do that.
Perfect. Thanks, Sheila.
Thank you.
I just want to put in your quote about the bleach, where someone in the hot seat was, let's say, being a bit funny and arrogant about saying, so you're saying I could drink bleach and it wouldn't affect me. And Abraham came back with the simplest answer of, well, we think you'd be clever enough to realise not to drink the bleach in the first place.
Yeah, if you're in alignment, you're not tempted to do something.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But when someone hits me with, well, could I step in front of a car? To me, they have strong desire. The way I interpret that is strong desire and strong belief that it's not going to work for them. And their energy is flowing, but it's splitting. And that splitting is so uncomfortable, they come out with these sort of abrupt, angry sort of things. I don't really attract a lot of those conversations, to be honest. I end up attracting more fine-tuning kind of conversations or people that have similar stories to mine. And then I say, oh, great, let's collect those stories and let's do like a chicken soup for the soul. But without a lot of the struggle, it's just...
Well, it's like this is going to be my last interruption on this, right, for the moment. It's like the classic story in the hot seat person saying, so you say anybody can heal any ailment, anything like that? Abraham, of course, says, yes.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, why aren't people regrowing limbs that have like been lost and amputated? And Abraham's answer to the present day, and I love it, was simply because people believe it cannot be done. You know, and that is, Karen, this is for you for a second. I often say I cannot say a favourite Abraham quote. That is my favourite Abraham quote.
That's nice. It's really powerful. It makes me think of like the 4-minute mile, right? Whoever was the first person. Somebody who knows whatever the guy's name was, that was the first person to break the 4-minute mile. Yeah. And then everybody was like, oh, yeah, we can do that. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Now it's easy peasy, you know? Yeah, it's kind of funny how it takes someone to be, maybe it's possible, what could be possible. And the Bashar folks talk about anything we can imagine actually exists in some level of existence. So it's a matter of line, and Abraham talks about lining up with it. That we can have it and be, do, and have anything we want. And it's just a matter of lining up with it. So
I'm going to ask you a very advanced question.
Okay.
And I'm going to include with this just a very brief story to clarify what I mean. I'm a member of Synchronicity City, a photography group run by Jerry Downs. And he has all kinds of synchronicities, like amazing synchronicities where he'll take a photo, and it's like almost an impossible thing to capture on photography, but it happens to him all the time, right? Yeah. And I've noticed this for years. I've followed him for years now. And I'm a photographer, an amateur photographer, and I walk around with my camera everywhere, and I just don't see synchronicities like he does, right? And it just doesn't happen for me. So one day I said, okay, universe, I would love to have a synchronicity like Jerry Downs. And so I'm looking around, nothing's happening. And I go to take a nap, or I'm watching something on TV, and I notice that outside something really dramatic is happening. The colors in my room are changing because of what's happening outside. And I have this impulse, go outside now with your camera. And I'm kind of resisting it because what's happening on the TV is more interesting. And anyway, it was like, Ted, get up, go, just go. So I go outside with a camera, and there's a tree full of rainbow parrots, and they're just going crazy, right? And above this tree full of rainbow parrots is a giant rainbow. And I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I took the photo. The universe had answered, my request. I wanted to have a synchronicity like Jerry Downs. And so I published that, and Jerry, of course, was quite impressed that I had imitated his magnificent abilities. Anyway, so here's my question. Is the universe
Hold on, I just need a minute, because there's so much in what you said that I could just point to that I'm like, but I just need a minute. Okay, so
My question
go ahead and ask the question.
Is alignment just a matter of our noticing, or is the universe itself conscious, interactively conscious with us, so that when I put out a vibrational request, is the universal consciousness actually responding so that, okay, Ted, watch this, rainbow in the sky over the rainbow parrots. Perfectly arced, by the way. I'll send you the photo later.
Oh, that'd be great.
I will post it as a comment. When this gets posted to Abraham Fund, I'll post it as a comment. And perfectly arced, it's way too good, right? I could have never have planned it, right? And so my question is the universe conscious? Do you have any experience of that? Or do you think it's just a matter of our noticing?
What? That's an interesting question. I think it's interesting that you phrase it either or, because really, who's to say it can't be both?
Well, yeah.
I'm just saying.
I
want to take a minute just to circle back around to some of the languaging and some of the things you said. I mean, I heard you say, I think you are a cooperative component with this photographer that you admire. And you are telling a story about him and his work that leads you to keep rendezvousing with examples of his synchronicity. So for you, like if you buy a white car, you're only going to see white cars. When you tell the story of his synchronicity and amazing talents and you appreciate it, you're going to think that's all he has. And maybe he does, but other people might have a different experience of him. But so you're telling that story, which is beautiful, and you appreciate it and you attract it and you like it. Then I heard you speak about yourself, and you said you're a photographer. And then you said, what kind of photographer?
Amateur.
Amateur. You said, I'm an amateur. And to me, the energy went, and I'm a photographer. And at first it was like, I'm a photographer and I want that and I desire that. And the energy's kind of going one way. And then you say, correct, whatever, maybe that didn't feel whatever to you. So you said, I'm an amateur photographer, which to me was like, and I'm just starting, or I'm not good, whatever. It didn't feel as good to me. I didn't believe, it didn't seem true because you're a photographer. So that seemed true. And then I'm an amateur photographer kind of did that. And then you said something, there was more stuff about, and I want this, but I've never had it. And it would be great, but I can't imagine what happened to me. And it always seems to be happening to him. So it's just a kind of a thing about being mindful of what you're putting your energy on and telling a different story. Because if you were in the hot seat with Abraham, they would say, why aren't we, when I was at Abraham's house, Karen's house, when I was at Abraham's house, I misspoke, but Karen's house, I said I either am soothing ruffled feathers, how I spend my time and how I focus my attention. I'm soothing ruffled feathers, or I'm milking it, right? So if I were in your shoes, I'd like to think this, although sometimes I'm humaning, right? Their new expression. I would like to think that I would be like Ghostbusters when remember the original Ghostbusters, when they finally get a call and the woman says, we got one, and they get one call, no, just me with the movies. Okay, so I would, I got slimed, right? So I would be like, I did it. I got this amazing, and I was almost resistant. I almost missed it, and I wouldn't have even known I missed it unless someone else took the picture and geolocated it, and I could say it was right there. You had a sense, so you're learning to trust your inspiration. You said something is changing, and you had an awareness of it, and you were like, and we've all done this, I would imagine. But it's not that. There's nothing to, it's breaking that inertia to get out. You felt something was happening, but was it going to be so magical and mystical? Maybe, maybe not. So, but you did it. You broke the inertia and you went outside, and it was spectacular. I mean, that is a story I'd be telling and milking it. I would tell the story from that perspective. I would edit out, delete some of those things. I would say, I've admired this photographer, and the thing I admired, I attracted, and now I'm doing it. Even though in the past I might have looked at myself as a more amateur photographer, but I took a picture that is worthy, that he would said it was worthy of his portfolio, whatever he said. And I would say milking that, and it's great that it happened. And it felt to me like maybe, I'm not sure if I just was at the right time at the right place and I lined up with it and it existed and I kind of came in, or is the universe playing with me? And was it sort of, because I think to you, it felt a little like the universe reaching in, like it's saying, come play.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's why you're asking the question.
Yeah. Well, then it would relate to any dream come true, you know. In other words, I asked for a synchronicity that I could photograph.
Right.
Or
but what I'm saying is you had
a trip to France.
Yeah. So you had, what I'm highlighting here is you had a feeling that felt like the universe was playing with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing, like, you didn't say that. I didn't. Everybody saw that I had to pull that out of him, right? Everybody heard and saw. I had to say. So, and then you're asking me and us almost to verify, like, I had chocolate ice cream and it was delicious and I wanted chocolate ice cream and then I had just the kind of chocolate ice cream I wanted. And does chocolate ice cream please everybody? That you're asking, you know, you're kind of asking a question, but you've already had the experience.
Yeah.
So to me, that is the truth, is in your, I kind of feel like I was there or am there. Like I can kind of picture, to me, it would be like these golden yellow, like the sun kind of doing this golden, like there's a rainbow where I'm living now is by a lake. And I actually was experience being at the end of the rainbow. I had an experience where I was happy, joy, felt the colors change, like in my peripheral vision, felt something change in the quality of the air, felt something that made me look. And it was almost like a haze of, you know, it was the right conditions for a rainbow. It was misty and the sun was shining. And I could see wide bands of diluted sort of red and diluted sort of green. But it was so, the pixelated, I don't even know what let's call that. It was so spread out that I was like, I am at a rainbow. I'm right next to a rainbow. I'm not looking at the rainbow from far away where the colors get to, you know, whatever that perspective is, be more mushed together and look like a traditional rainbow. I was just, it was breathtaking. It was like, oh, I met this experience. So when you talk about the universe playing and that change in light, that's keys that in for me. And I understand why, you know, maybe it was so amazing experience that you're feeling like you want to feel around and see, was that real? Was it true? Did you experience it or others experiencing it? But I would just be tempted to say, you had that experience, so it was true for you. I don't believe there's an objective. This is my personal belief system.
So just to be clear, I just gave it as an example. Yeah. And then the specific question is the universe conscious? In other words,
before we get too far away, Sheila, what country were you in when you were standing in that rainbow?
I was in Lakeland, Florida.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Back to the.
Yeah. So
Sheila. Yeah. Just so you know, we have about max of about 25 more minutes of recording time, and then we can.
How about let's see.
Know what you wanted to get in here on the recording time.
Oh, I appreciate that. We'll do the wind story, but I want to come back around to the TED example about, is it consciousness? That's an interesting question. I like the idea, and since I don't believe, I have a convenient belief system, Ted. So this might not be a satisfying answer for you, but maybe there's someone here that can answer it satisfyingly either now or, you know, we often do social time after the recorded time. So just so you know, I'm not looking for the answer. I'm looking for Sheila. I'm looking for like your experience. That's all. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So, but I preface that by saying I don't believe there's an objective out there reality, that I believe that whatever I'm experiencing or want to experience will be reality. And so I don't know that I've thought about it in exactly those terms before. Yeah. But when you say it, I like the idea. I mean, I hear Abraham talk about dolphins playing with people or cooperative components. So I believe the energy and love of the universe why wouldn't it non-physical want to collaborate and be playful? I mean, to me, that feels, I like it. I liked it as soon as you said it. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
it feels good. It feels true. Yeah, why not? And
All
it
right.
could also be, but I think it can also be I line up with it. Like it's a rendezvous.
Yeah.
It could be both, or depending on the situation. Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect.
Just taking thought beyond.
I got 2 perfects. I got 2 perfects. I'll keep the score, but I got 2 perfects in bed. Now, he might order a latte and say perfect. You know, I don't know, but I'll take it.
No,
'cause I take everything.
no.
As a compliment.
10 out of 10, for sure.
Oh, wow.
Perfecto.
I was officially, was I fishing for compliments? I think that was official. So let's move on to the contest, because the thing about the contest I noticed when I reviewed it before this call, there's so many components that we've already talked about. Like this is much more direct, straightforward. So Mary, hope maybe you're on the call or you're watching. This is what I would use to win. If anything looks like there's going to be one winner or one thing that's going to happen, this is what I've used, and it's been really successful. I just thought I was a really lucky person. I mean, but I had so many examples of this, like winning at bingo, and then someone else, I had already won several times at bingo, just to tell a small story, and there's someone else that was playing bingo, and they won, but I'd already won a few times, right? They won. For some reason, they gave their prize to me. I'm just kidding. No explanation. It just showed up. I want to give this to her. Okay, I'm happy to take it. Because I really thought I was going to win that one too, but I wanted other people to win too, but I couldn't help it if I'm an alignment, and that's going to, so I got so many prizes that day. Excuse me. So this story about winning the contest actually begins with an Abraham cruise. I don't think that's a picture from the cruise, but the hot seat picture when they were doing it live. So, but pictures wise, this is people that were in Jimmy Van Sant's band, and that's me with a guitar pick in my mouth. And that was, I was coaching Jimmy's Van Sant's manager. So that's Sweet Home Alabama. That's a Van Sant. That's their, what's their famous one? Stairway to Heaven. What's their famous? Freebird. So you know the band that had Freebird, and they died in a car crash, and then there's a cousin that continues on the music. So that was the people the manager asked me to coach on doing, what do they call it? Public appearances, press releases, kind of thing. So I traveled with his band a little bit and hung out. And so these are the guys in this band, and it was a lot of fun. So that's me doing that. So I'm having that fun. And I'm entering a contest and winning the contest. You see there's 2 winners. I won by votes and someone else won by a wild card. So this is Tim Ferriss had this contest that was, Tim Ferriss is a New York Times bestselling author, and he's written The 4-Hour Work Week and 4-Hour Body and Tribe of Mentors and a lot of really great books. And he was offering this weekend getaway in Napa, California, where he was going to open his kimono and share all of his secrets. And for that, the charge was $10,000. And not including airfare or hotel, just the experience of being at the event was $10,000. And he opened up 2 contests that people could enter, put a YouTube in, that kind of thing. So that was the contest that I ended up winning. And that's me with Tim Ferriss. And that's me posting it. And there's Wendy saying, hey, how cool. So that's our Wendy. And my sister saying, are you in France now? So we got to travel the castles and treated like kings and queens, and it was really, really delightful. And oh, there's my crush on the sun picture. But so I'll stop sharing now. So the contest, let me pull up my other document. So the contest, like I described, so now we're going to start chronologically. It was, we know I won, and I won the golden ticket to get into this $10,000 event and be with people who, for the most part, writing the check was just like writing a check for $100. And they attracted abundance, and not everybody, but the majority of people, they attracted abundance. They want to make a difference on the planet. They want to write best-selling books, and it was awesome. We got spoiled and trips and gifts, and it was really cool. And I felt like a celebrity because not everybody knew everybody there. It was limited to 200 people. And not everybody knew everybody there, but they knew the 2 contest winners, myself and Jacqueline. And because we had been posted a little bit online. So how this started is going to seem a strange way. I booked myself to go on an Abraham cruise with the woman that I met that started the France party, whatever it is. But when it got close to going on the Abraham, I don't know why I'm whispering. When it got close to going on the Abraham cruise, I didn't feel like going. I wasn't packing. I wasn't doing anything. I was just going to work. I'd put in for vacation time, but I wasn't moving forward with it. Meanwhile, she's so excited. When are we going to go? She's coming to the US and we're going to rendezvous and then we're going to go on this cruise together. Well, I decided nothing's more important than that I feel good. And I said, I don't know why it's not coming. I'm not moving towards it, but I'm not moving towards it. And that's when I had been, and Kieran, this is someone that came to your group. He's part of a French speaking group now. Tall guy, I'm trying to think of his name. But I was trying to get him to be this life coach and do these seminars. And that's what boomeranged around and I started doing it. So I don't go on the cruise. My friend is a little like, what is up? And I said, if I believe in this stuff and you do things because it feels good, not because you should, I know it seems ridiculous and probably no refund, although I did get some money refunded. It's, you know, it doesn't make sense, but it feels better to not go. I'm not going. And so I said, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But that weekend I started a meetup group, which led to the seminars and workshops, which led to all that over 2 years and 100 of them. And it all started by not going on the cruise. So when I had that meetup and started it, there was a gentleman that came to one of the first couple of meetups, and he became, we were friends for a while, and he liked this author, Tim Ferriss. So Tim Ferriss's primary demographic is 20-something males that are into fitness and technology. And I didn't check any of those boxes at the time. But I was interested in entrepreneur and entrepreneurial mindset and outsourcing things. I was interested in it. But I didn't read the 4-Hour Work Week. My friend Paul had read it and told me the highlights. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. When the contest came up, again, Paul told me about the contest. And I was interested, but I wasn't inspired. But I was like, wouldn't it be fun to win? So by this point, I have learned about the Abraham Hicks material, applied it, gone to California, boomeranged myself back, slingshotted myself back, doubled my salary with the $15,000 relocation check, no receipts asked. Gosh, so many things had happened by then that I'm really trusting myself and that this stuff works. So I said, if I'm in alignment with this contest, I can totally win. That's what they say. So why not use it as alignment? But I didn't have a starting point for what I wanted to enter the contest. You had to do a less than 3-minute YouTube video. Oh, and Karen, could you please make a note that I have my 4-Hour Work Week video, the one that I did. It's only 2 minutes and 3 seconds, I think, that ended up winning. You know, I ended up winning the contest. Not so much for the video. I think it's because of my alignment. I think it might be interesting for people to see. So thank you. And so I was interested. And like Melanie was talking about following her inspiration, and it seemed like just a kind of small thing. And this sometimes it can seem that way, like you know, just a regular neutral kind of thing you're doing. So I was inspired to follow the band. So remember I said I was asked to coach the band to do the Jimmy Van Sant specifically to do these press conferences kind of thing to help them with communication, which is so funny because I had to reach for the word to even say. But you know, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be in alignment, authentic, and all that stuff kind of works out. And so I was just helping him be more comfortable. But I decided I'm going to follow the band like a roadie. Like, why am I following the band? But I felt compelled to go see them in Colorado. When I'm in Colorado with the band and those guys where I had the guitar pick in my mouth, my friend Paul calls me and my battery is like on 0%. And he says, I have an idea for you while you're there. And he says it, he fits it in just before the battery dies. He says, while you're there, start your video by recording the backstage of the band, them performing, and that'll be your beginning of the video. And as soon as he said it, I knew I could win with that. I could win with that. And the phone battery dies on my side. And I knew that I wasn't going to be speaking with him because I'm getting ready to go to the gig and do the band. And sure enough, I do it. I do it in 2 takes. The first take was too loud. I was too close to the band. The second take is what you'll see. And I did the video and I was like, okay, that's done. I had this knowing, just like I knew I was going to work at Airbus. So for me, it's strong desire. And I'm just going to kind of blend things a little bit because of time and because we've already had a lot of discussion about the techniques. And maybe this is something I'll carry through in the format as this format evolves. We'll see. So I had a strong desire and I had some way to sort of allow it in, and then I kind of dropped it. I didn't get attached to it. I didn't like I did when I entered the contest. I didn't go back to the website. I didn't look to see, does he have a winner yet? I said, this is going to be my opportunity to be in alignment. I'm going to only do things that feel good. which is usually petting my cat, being in nature. Remember, I had my trees I was like intoxicated with. So there's a lot of that going on. It was whatever Abraham talks about, basking, enjoying, whatever little thing. But then if I felt inspired, I opened like a Twitter account, was tweeting. I called the newspapers. I was like, hey, I could win this. You should. Well, I did these things that seemed kind of outrageous, but it was inspired. I only took inspired action. And even though sometimes I felt a little silly, because sometimes you're inspired and then you have a little bit of belief go in and then you're less inspired. But I just went ahead and did the fun things. And then if it didn't feel fun, I didn't do it and I didn't worry about it. And so I didn't really even read all the contest rules. I didn't even read the book, really. I didn't read all of it. I just read heard the parts that my friend recommended. I did buy the book, and then I did flip through it. But I sort of just cherry picked my way through it. So I'm just living my life, thought, wouldn't it be nice, wouldn't it be fun if that happened? My friend Paul calls me and says, I'm one of the 32 entries that were handpicked by Tim Ferriss and his group out of how many global entries to be the ones that people look at. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then I just continued on. I'm like, but I didn't really tell anybody. I only told Paul because he was part of the Law of Attraction group. I don't think I tell many people maybe I told my Law of Attraction group, maybe Wendy, I don't know, you can keep me honest on this. I don't think I told regular people, like people I was working with, who would say, the contest, what are you going to do if you win? Like I didn't even entertain those. I just sort of avoided people. I didn't entertain any questions. I was just in my happy place. I didn't look at the website. I didn't look at the other 31 videos. I said, I'm not interested. I believe that they say if you're in alignment, you're the one that's going to be selected. Now, another end to the story that I can share is that even though, I win the votes part, there was somebody one of the gentlemen that was competing for the votes part, he was a film student or something. He ended up, just like I got the golden ticket to go, right? He was asked to go, even though he didn't win, technically he didn't win by votes, but he was invited by Tim Ferriss and his team to film the event. So he was there at the event. I mean, it's like winning, right? So many ways to win. I just wanted to use this as an excuse to be in alignment. And sure enough, as I'm living my life, I get a call from that guy, Paul, and he says, you're in the semifinals. There's like 18 or 16 or something of them. And I'm like, great, it keeps working. I told my friend, isn't that nice? Great news. Let me keep doing what I'm doing. Keep doing what I'm doing. I don't even know there's semifinals. Like I thought there was just finals because I hadn't paid that much attention to the details. And as you can imagine, I made it to the finals. Paul calls me again and has to tell me because he knows I'm not looking at the website. He tells me I'm in and I'm like, okay, great. And I just kept doing what I was doing, being happy, doing things if it felt inspired. But if it didn't feel inspired, I didn't do it. And there were 8 gentlemen, thinking of the demographic of his audience, and me. And you guys can see the video at some point. And I, when it came to announce, the winner, I was online messengering with this woman who was in the wild card contest, because there was those 2 contests. She was in the wild card contest. I'm not sure exactly the guidelines of that. I barely knew the ones that I was in. And the wild card one, she called me or texted me because she was going to be out of the country and she wouldn't have access to internet for some reason, wherever she was going. And she asked me if I would keep an eye on the page to let her know if she had won and communicate with her by text or we were working that out. Meanwhile, I'm laying on my king-size pillow top bed, early evening, looking out of the balcony, petting my 2 kitties. I'm just sort of chilling out. This is just a fabulous thing. And she's not on Messenger anymore. She's kind of, when you can kind of sense somebody's like not right there responding. But she came right back and she said, I think you should check the website. And I was like, you think I should check the website? Like at first I was like, what do you mean check the website? She wrote back, yeah, I think you're going to want to check the website. I said, oh, maybe there's something good there. Check the website. Sure enough, that was the announcement I showed you where I put a little star by my name or something that it said that I'd won. So that's how I found out that I'd won. And that's my process for doing it and has worked for me time and time and time again. And being at that event was amazing. And I decided I wasn't going to try to convince anybody. I wasn't going to try to tell somebody. All I did was be in a really good mood. Because once I was moving towards the experience of actually going, I saw that people had commented to me and I wanted to reach out and respond and comment to them. But I saw that they were sharing things like they were looking at the webpage every day and so excited. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like excitement. That seems like anxiety. It seems like they were a little whatever. And, but I didn't try to convince anybody. It was like this personal experiment. And it was so like, it felt really, 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 really good. And it was really wonderful to be there. And I felt like it was proof, but I wasn't seeking proof. I just sort of did this as a why not, it could be fun. And I got to learn about writing a best-selling book and marketing it and all that wonderful stuff, and meet these really, really amazing people. And I got one of my favorite compliments I've gotten so far. One of my favorite compliments so far, because there was a gentleman there who had worked with Steve Jobs, and he had said when he'd seen me as part of the larger group, and then when he met me in person, he said that I reminded him of Steve Jobs. And I was like, wow, that sounds like it felt like a big compliment. And through talking with him and thinking later, I don't know if you all have heard the story about Steve Jobs kind of having this distortion field around him, where he was able to kind of use Jedi mind tricks and convince people that things were a certain way or to do things. And that's sort of, I guess, whatever this distortion field, contagion, happy, whatever this is, whatever I'm flowing out is, I think, what he was picking up on. But it was awesome. And I think anybody can win anything. I could tell you job interviews. I started making a list, and at some point I'll compile a list of these things, whether it's a job interview or something that seems like there's only one of something, and just being in alignment and happy about it, wanting it, but somehow allowing it, getting in the hot seat, I would put as that as well. So I would encourage it's funny that it seems so funny to have to tell myself to feel good. I don't have to feel a should or a striving or a want or a worry. Can I just feel good for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 seconds? Sometimes I've had to talk myself into feeling good, but the more you do it, the more momentum, the easier it gets, and things are just coming in, and you're like, oh yes. It's kind of like the Oprah thing, or people that are already seem to attract a lot of abundance. People keep wanting to give them things, and people, when the baby's already happy, people want to make it happier. Let me play with the baby, but the baby's like, crying. They're like, yeah. It's worked again and again and again and again and again, and I hope that helps Mary and anybody out there that is thinking of doing. A question that might get asked is, playing lottery numbers or winning. And I've done that. I've been like, maybe I'm being inspired, because Abraham says you'll be inspired to go there and win. I do enjoy money and allowing money to flow to me, and I like allowing it to flow to other people. And I really recommend that game about keeping the $100 cash. And if you're not in a point where you have the $100 or it feels easy to you, then don't worry about it. Someday you will, and you'll have the $100 cash and have the idea to spend it. But money is just one form of currency, right? So I've really been enjoying things that money can't buy. Money to a certain level can maybe freedom and choices in some sense, but it's like, when someone gives you a smile and their whole face lights up, like every part of their face lights up. That's, something that money can't buy. Like, I'm really interested in both the things money can buy and the things money can't buy. So I'm interested in the lottery. I think, wouldn't that be nice? Isn't that fun? But it could come a lot of ways. Abraham talks about that $9,000 diamond earring someone found. And someone else might have kicked it or said it's not real, it's not true, and not even bother getting it appraised. You all might have heard that on a recording that someone had won a contest for their family to travel somewhere the family wanted to travel. But they thought it was squirrely and they didn't quite believe it, so they sort of kept asking questions. And it turned out that the people were trying to give, it was a real prize. They were trying to give it to the last how many people, and none of them thought it was real or for them. And so this family kind of got alignment with it eventually, but almost didn't, because so how Abraham talks about it. Yeah, there's people that thought that was just a scam and wasn't real, and because of that belief, it blocked that abundance that was trying to get to them. So I think
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just a second. Sorry, Dory.
Sheila.
Just a second.
Okay.
And it's always, I believe I'm going to draw a lottery win. That's what I believe. Let's go on that. Right? But how many people in the hot seat about the lottery, excuse me, and Abraham has always said, no matter what anybody tells you, it's not an unrealistic desire. What the question is do you desire that lottery win or financial abundance?
Right.
Now, I could give you a whole list on this and everything, and from looking, you know, about lottery and everything, but I'm going to leave it at that. You know, people are saying about, oh, I want to win the lottery, financial abundance, freedom, do whatever I want and everything. And then the universe in your ear. Don't you consider this approach? No, that's not comfortable. That's not comfortable. There's always another boat. People have seen it in Abraham from my post. I'm going to leave it at that.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Mm.
And was there another, was there Dory, I think, or someone? Melanie, maybe?
Was
I
there
heard
a
another voice.
question? Yeah, I do. This is Dory talking. Jonathan, did it feel like you had a question, or were you addressed? Was it a comment only?
It was a comment only, Dory, and I looked
Okay.
at you.
Did you feel completed in your comment? Jonathan?
I am complete.
Okay. I thank you for not letting me interrupt you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Mm.
Okay. Because we both started talking at the same time.
I know.
And I was more than happy to yield. I was more than happy to yield to you, Jonathan. So I'm going to say my question now. My question to Sheila is from Dory. Dory McGuire here. And I'm glad to be here, and hello to everybody. And as the recording is coming to a close soon, I'll also say my goodbyes at the front of my question. And my question is to Sheila. So whenever, as you have your techniques to win, and they are reiterating and confirming some of my beliefs about how to go about these as well. And so sometimes when you set out to win, and then that win does not come true, if perhaps it doesn't, then, or maybe it never does for you. So maybe this question is null and void for you.
Well, it's
But,
just I don't think I set out to win.
Okay, well, you enter a contest and you say, I'm
Right,
going to
but
win this contest.
But I just wouldn't use the phrase set out to win. I was told about the contest and I was interested. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice it? But
Okay.
I didn't act until I could win with that. I didn't
Okay,
act until that. Yeah.
Well, whenever you say I could win with that, to me, that is what I mean by I set out to win. It's the same to me, like I could win with that. Like,
Got it.
Like,
yeah.
I'm going to go get a drink of milk. I could go get a drink of milk. I'm going to set out and get a drink of milk. Something like, it's just the same. Like, it's the same. No, there's no efforting involved. It's a done deal. My drink of milk, it's going to happen. Okay. There's no effort. It's it's a done deal. And so anytime that, for example, it's a super done deal and it doesn't happen, what types of things do you, like for me, I would say, something better is coming for me, and this was just straight through it, and I soothed myself with things that I would say. So I would have things that I would tell myself, but I'd be interested in what kinds of ways specifically you would soothe yourself through those surprises where it didn't happen the way you were expecting.
Well, I'm thinking about how to answer that, kind of feeling around for that. And I don't know, sometimes I might want, I'm having a hard time with, I go for a lot of things, but then I'm going for the next thing. I remember hearing, so I don't always remember the things I wanted and went for.
I think I'm getting it. I think I kind of felt like I fell backwards. Like you go for things without being attached to the outcome. Like on HGTV, I enter for a dream home, and I'll be darned, I'll enter at one time, and I feel like, where's my dream home? I entered this thing, like I entered it.
I look at it like a piece of drift. I look at it as driftwood, an indicator. If I attracted a contest like that, I would say, oh, and I feel inspired to enter. That's a piece of driftwood. That's an indicator. I think that's an Abraham term. That could be, it could come this way. This is one of the ways it could come. But likewise, I could open a drawer in a hotel and there's $10,000. Or I could find the diamond earring, or. So I just look at this, maybe this, maybe that, maybe that. This sounds good, that sounds good, maybe this good. And meanwhile, the Bashar folks talk about their main formula that they give is act on our highest excitement to the best of our ability without insistence on a particular outcome. And that, for me, matches well with the Abraham material, and that I follow whatever seems the most fun to do in the moment, and depending where I am on the emotional scale is where taking a nap or going for a run or different things might appeal to me at different places, but I do whatever might feel fun to me then. And then I want something, but I don't expect, it doesn't have to come a particular way. So I think that's helped me with, I enter it and then where is it? Where's my stuff? You know, like, remember did you see the movie As Good as It Gets, when Jack Nicholson is saying, you know, soft shell crabs, did I get my soft shell crabs? Good. So I put my order into the restaurant and I'm like, my grilled cheese and onion rings of root beer, they're coming. You know, my little Snoopy snack is coming. And so I think that's helpful to me. I do this one and what's next to be inspired, and what's next, a contest is just one of the things. Yeah.
And like to speak to my HD TV dream home, I might not know what kind of trouble I'd be getting if I did win that. I might not want it if I knew.
Oh, if I felt crummy about it, if I had
my vortex might not allow it to me, because I know I specifically want these beautiful, simple elbow room, you know, and it might not be what I truly want, and therefore I'm not allowing myself to have it because it doesn't answer my specific requests, even though it said win and I like winning and blah, 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 blah. I know more from my broader perspective what I specifically want. And so for those specific reasons, from my broader perspective, I say, that ain't what you want, believe it. And so that's why I don't win. And so whenever something doesn't happen that I think I want, I always know that it's always the right move. And so I often think, no worries, move on, because and I just wanted to hear, and you said some really good things too. And so, but as I'm hearing your talk, I'm hearing my own downloads from my own answers. And so it's like three things all going on. And so I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to mute and just listen.
Yeah, the part that you said, I think I heard, and I mentioned Bashar many times during this. Usually when I talk about Abraham stuff, I don't mention Bashar, who's the channeled entity, and Daryl Anka is the human, the Esther in this version. But for some reason it's coming up. But he talks about the best we can imagine is like the worst source, the bottom of what source or whatever we have in mind for ourselves. So we might think, I want this dream house, but really you're going to have a dream house and a mansion and a estate and and money and do whatever you want with it. You know, there's so much more rather than this little thing which will get you locked into here. So yeah, I would soothe myself with that I thought I wanted it and I played around with it, but there must have been a little something in there, but it doesn't really matter anyway. I was step 1ing, so now I'm step 5ing because I'm back in step 1, but I'm not really mad with myself. Sometimes I think, what can I do with this now? I feel a little crummy because whatever didn't happen. I don't like it, but I could do something with it. It's like a creative kind of, maybe I could use this to leverage something. Maybe I could kind of, instead of being sad or down the emotional scale, maybe I could get angry or blame someone, or I could kind of work my way up and find some new desire, which I wouldn't have found if I hadn't gone down the wrong alley kind of thing, but there's no such thing as a wrong alley. Yeah, really interesting. This is awesome. This has been, awesome experience, and the questions are just, I'm like blown away. I have this little thing to share just to say, let's see, where did I put that?
Well, Sheila, I got to end with, I'm going to give you perfect.
Yes.
I hate to one up you, Ted, but I just had to do it. I had to.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm doing
that was perfect, Tori, and I loved your question too.
I'd love to. The Abraham Fun Group is the Abraham Fun Group, and I look forward to get. I'm going to be still part of the Friday meetings, but I am starting a Tuesday meeting. So if anyone feels inspired, and you want to come to this, it's a Zoom call. It's going to be, it's a T3 thing. It's a storytelling, and that's where I'm going to capture these and then put them on YouTube. Then I have this whole plan to capture them, put them on YouTube. I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, so that not everybody's comfortable speaking up like that. So people process differently or whatever. So on Reddit, REDDIT, you do an Ask Me Anything, and I have an Abraham Results Reddit page where in text I'll tell the story, and then I'll be online for 4 hours and we'll be typing it. And then I will write blog posts after I've synthesized from the memes I did to the Tuesday to the Reddit. I'll synthesize, and then how maybe my perspective and questions that got asked that changed. Then I'll have this like fine-tuned nugget to really put out there, and that'll be part of my blog. Eventually, that will all go on SheilaSieusankar.com. Right now, that's a placeholder for my graduate work. But this is my Flow with My Go Facebook page. So right now, that's going to be a repository for stuff. And then at the beginning of the call, I think we talked about a Patreon. Somewhere I have a Patreon thing. I don't know where the Patreon thing is. But I decided to start it, and I might be doing a little different than some people do. I decided to not have tiers and TIERS levels in my Patreon. I decided to, there it is, Sheila Sieusankar. I decided that if people want to get into Patreon, and there's a behind the scenes story for this call, which anyone that wants the behind the scenes story for this call, for my day-to-day in this call, and behind the scenes stories mean, is there anything I'm real-time processing and Abrahaming, I don't know what to call it, sorting out, either soothing or milking, because when you get to the results show, that's all, these stories are already in the past, they've already happened, I know the outcome, I know where things led, I kind of have hindsight and perspective about it. But the Patreon account is going to be for behind the scenes, telling stories of what I'm currently processing, anything that helped me create what I'm creating, any sneak peeks like when I attend the Abraham events, and I'm going to do a little, hey, I was just in the hot seat, blah, blah, blah. The first people get access to it, and it's $5 a month. So if you feel like that, but it just occurred to me now, if anybody would like reach out to me on any of these ways and say, I would like the behind the scenes backstage video, and I will just send it to you. There's 2 videos from today so far, and I will send that to you so you can review and get an idea of what I mean. How's that?
Yes.
What? And I feel like that was, and we're almost at like 10:08 my time, which at the ashram, they really enjoyed that 1008, 108. They really like that number. So it's kind of interesting that we're kind of at that point. And then I guess after the recording, people stick around and socialize.
Yeah, that's certainly an option.
The Abraham group does, and some people like to do so. And sometimes the conversation continues. And so, if anyone's watching this recording, next time you can be in on the call, and then have the socialization, because that's not recorded, and that's just live in the moment. Whatever happens, it's this ethereal, magical thing that happens. But thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Mark, for recording and all this tech support, and thank you to Karen for having this group, and for Mark and Karen for being my first people to and I'm really excited where things are headed. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Can you please pronounce your last name slowly?
Sure. The way I pronounce it is Sieusankar.
Sieusankar.
My husband tells me it comes from Shiva Shankar, something like that in Hindu. And I guess his family originally back then is from there.
And your husband is Paul?
Oh, Paul. Oh, my husband is Troy. Paul is a friend. He was a friend for many years. Yeah.
Okay, Troy. And Troy is Sieusankar as well, or is he go to different?
Sieusankar.
Oh.
So my maiden name would be Sheila Bridget McCarthy. So now, and then I had a nickname, Savvy. So it's like I'm in the witness protection program. Like people are trying to find me, and I'm like, Savvy Sheila Bridget McCarthy Sieusankar. And I'm gonna erase it all and go by Saffron, I think is my new thing. Because it's the most expensive spice per house. Oh, is Troy on the call?
No, I was saying hi to your husband.
Oh, okay, because I thought he might do that kind of thing. He might be on the call because he knows that I'm doing this right now, and he might. No,
I felt like he was on the easy chair behind you or out of screen.
Oh no, but to know the story, you have to just request the story. to see where's Troy, where's Sheila. The background looks a little different than the background I saw in the Cummings attraction. You know, could be interesting. Might surprise you.
Well, let's
It's all
hear
good.
it.
It's all good. It's not, you know.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
all very,
ready?
very good and interesting.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to start the recording, but hang on, okay? Don't go away.
Thank you.
Oh,
Love
good.
ya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sheila, love ya.
I am.
Thank you, Sheila.
Want to be.